Welcome to the Up Arrow Podcast with William Harris, featuring top business leaders sharing strategies and resources to get to the next level. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hey everyone, I'm William Harris. I'm the founder and CEO of Element and the host of the Up Arrow Podcast, where I feature the best minds in e-commerce to help you scale from 10 million to 100 million and beyond as you up arrow your business and your personal life. If the last decade was about brands finding a voice on social, the next one is about brands earning a relationship through an AI character people actually want to talk to. Today's guest is building the future. Akash Nigam is the co-founder and CEO of Genies, the company Forbes says is building the visual layer for LLMs, and is now bringing emotionally intelligent AI avatars and UGC tools into games through a new partnership with Unity. Backed by some of the biggest names in tech and media, including a 150 million Series C led by Silver Lake, Bob Iger involved at the board level, and earlier support from Mary Meeker's Bond, Genies has been busy turning avatars from marketing gimmicks into persistent, monetizable companions. And with the Unity roadmap rolling out assets this year and deeper editor integrations in 2026, this isn't sci-fi, it's a build this quarter brief for operators. Akash also runs Humans, an AI-native venture studio, and he's been hands-on with entertainment and sports IP while advising brands with what to create with their fans. Fashion drops, quests, microtransactions, loyalty loops, the whole new playbook. If you lead a hyper-growth brand that you're wondering what comes after a great TikTok, this conversation is your field guide. Akash, welcome to the Up Arrow Podcast.
Thanks for having me. That was great.
Yeah, I want to give a quick shout out to Mike Poffman. Thanks for making this intro and bringing us together. So thank you, Mike. And one interruption that I want to dig into the heart of this here. This episode is brought to you by Element. Element is an award-winning advertising agency optimizing e-commerce campaigns around profit. In fact, we've helped 13 of our customers get acquired, with the largest one selling for nearly 800 million and one that IPO'd. You can learn more on our website at element.com, which is spelled ELUMYNT. Okay, everyone, this episode is going to get pretty deep and nerdy about something that's super new. So if you're listening and wondering, how does this help me, a $10 million e-commerce owner? I promise, if you listen to the end, we will bring this back to earth to make it practical. That said, Akash, I want to start off with, for someone who hasn't followed avatars since Web3, what's actually new about AI avatars versus the 2021 wave, like memory, personality, behavior, persistence? Like, what are we looking at?
Well, I think like the definition of an avatar has evolved throughout the years, right? I think you're nailing it on its head. Like the concept of an avatar, the word avatar has actually been around for decades. I think the way that the world interprets what an avatar means, and then also what it signifies or what it can do in each era, is predicated upon like one, the community, and then two, like where's the internet at that time? Like an avatar really is like rooted in places like Japan and Korea have had avatars for much longer than like how long we've had them for. And it really has been as a vehicle to be able to express a different version of yourself and then be able to connect with other like-minded individuals, very much putting your personality at the forefront, and then the outside angle of it more of just like a connective tissue. I think like in Web3 or like in the quote unquote metaverse, it was very much considered as a vehicle to solve for presence, right? Because during 2020, people couldn't meet in person. And when they couldn't meet in person, they started to think about these virtual worlds, and then people would go hang out on those worlds. We were never really passionate about an avatar representing one of its like core tenets for the crypto community per se. Much of the time we were very much in line with like, how can we evangelize Gen Alpha and Gen Z to leverage an avatar past a photo, video, or a text? The reason why we said that is because there are three main layers that we thought would represent the future of the internet. One is AI, what you just mentioned. Number two, eventually is going to be mixed reality, even if it's 5-7 years away. And then number three is gaming. So places like Roblox and places like Fortnite are growing and growing in demand and then also in popularity. And we feel like those types of experiences are just going to increase in volume as well. Now, an avatar does get stronger the more that the internet evolves. So, let's call it, let's say 15 years ago, it could only really be used as either a profile picture or maybe a character you could use in a game, but it was very, very limited in what it could do in that game. And in those games, maybe you could go talk to other people and it could be like one of those lobbies. Second Life was very popular back in the day, right? Now, as things have evolved, particularly with AI, Now all of a sudden you can talk to these individual characters. These characters also have their own behavior system. So when I'm talking to a character, it has its own behaviors that will emanate what's coming out of the LLM itself, right? So all of a sudden you can now unlock these one-on-one relationships with existing IP that have their own AI avatars, and then it's become easier more than ever to be able to launch an effective AI avatar too. So I think like the big difference here is interaction more than anything, and then also the generation of the AI avatar and their AI avatar experiences as well.
I like that. Forbes framed Genies as the visual layer for LLMs. I want you to translate that for the CFO. What does this work layer do in the P&L?
Yeah, so so here's the value I think that Genies can add to any of these companies, right? More than anything. I do believe that avatars are going to represent the new UI and UX of the internet. So like mobile apps as they exist today are going to be fully deprecated. And instead of me tapping on a square icon and then, you tap on the square icon and you get this classic UI that you can jump into. You have your settings top left, you have your profile top right. It's like classic. If you do imagine a world in which everybody's wearing glasses, let's say 7 years down the line, and the software layer, of course, is AI. If I'm like wearing these glasses and I'm looking around the room, I'm not going to just see these icons that are popping up left and right. I might see a character that's sitting right there, or I might want to tap to a character and go back and forth with them about information, right? And so I do think it's just going to like represent, I think more than anything, the new landscape for how people interface with information on the internet. Number two is, and how much value I think a character can bring to your business, right? And how much money you can make from it. Really relies on the microtransactions of interacting with the character. So there's charging somebody to be able to talk to your character, just be able to like go back and forth with its information. And then number two, baked into its use case, there's a lot of different things that you can monetize off of. So like whether it's like generating assets for the avatar itself or any of the in-game mechanics that come along with the avatar. There's a lot of different things that are packed into it, very similar to a mobile app as well. So, I think like more than anything, like I feel like that's going to be like the immediate value a character can bring to your business. And the microtransactions that are baked into it are going to be infinite.
Yeah. And I want to dig into that a little bit more later. There's a whole section that I want to kind of like dig deeper there.
Right.
But I want to kind of set this ground here for everybody before we start getting too far into it. Unity announced the integration here with Genies that you guys have. What does this really mean for a mid-market brand? I'm thinking about, again, some of the brands that we work with that are 30 million to 100 million. Like, what does this mean for them? You guys having your avatars with Unity?
So I think there's a couple of things. I think like number one, I do believe that every single brand on earth is eventually going to have their own AI avatar. I actually think that's really important, right? And the story that I go through here is at one point, every single brand on earth had to rethink of their identity of themselves for the internet, right? Like all brands existed at brick and mortar at one point, and then this new thing called Twitter came around. And when Twitter came around, they were like, okay, like who are we on Twitter? And in every single one of these companies, whether you're like a Home Depot or whether you're like, let's say like a big like fashion brand like Gucci or something like that, like it doesn't really matter. There are files there's like a transcript probably in a history within email threads that go back, let's say 15 years ago, of a marketing department being like, hey, this new thing called Twitter came about, like, should we launch our own Twitter account? And when they launched those meetings, they all talked internally and they had to define, well, okay, what's going to be our voice? Like, how do we tweet, right? What do we tweet about? What's the tone of our Twitter? What is like the profile picture we're going to use? And just by going through those mechanics, you have now personified your brand for the internet and how users can interact with it, right? So like that was a huge step. That same step is going to happen for all these brands for AI avatars, or how the market today is calling them AI companions. And the value that you got from Twitter in the very beginning was, I can now put out one tweet and I can communicate with all of my followers in real time. I also am able to build a relationship, even in a broad sense. I can personify my brand. Gucci had never been a person. Now Gucci all of a sudden feels like a person you can relate to. This takes it a step further, right? Now you can build an emotional connection with Gucci or Home Depot as a character you can see, a character that you can feel, touch, interact with, have a one-on-one conversation with, this character remembers everything about me, knows about my girlfriend, knows about my dog, knows about the fight that I got in school that day, and so forth. And then finally, these aren't just avatars that you can talk to, but this is where Unity becomes really interesting. These are avatars you can go play with as well. And so the broad thesis here is AI friends need to feel like real friends, right? And I think this is general consensus that there's going to be more AI people than real people on Earth. And you know, especially when I was 16 years old, like I didn't invite my friend over to my house to sit across a desk from me and then just talk back and forth until we were bored. It was like when you were younger, especially, you'd be like, let's go play basketball, or you know, let's go to the park with our dogs and like play a game or whatever. And so what's the digital form of that? Games. And so if you want, as a brand, if you want to build an emotional connection, particularly with the youth, which, you know, the youth typically in every generation runs trends and runs culture. But this is going to extend to everybody. If you want to build a connection with your community or new fans or new customers, you need to prioritize, number one-on-one relationship building. That comes with an AI avatar, right? And then number two is the ability to co-create and spend meaningful time with their customer or your fan and so forth. And so that means like not just conversation, let me go do stuff with you. Let me travel across the internet with you. So Unity is powerful because it powers 70% of the mobile games that exist on the App Store today are all generated using Unity. Genies avatar framework is getting integrated into the Unity editor, which is used as a tool for developers to produce these games as the default avatar moving forward. So that means any developer that wants to build a game is going to use the Genies avatar framework, which means that any brand that launches their own AI companion has the ability to be taken into these games along with the users as well. They can be used as NPCs, they can be used as the main character in the game, they can be used as just like kind of like your assistant in the game, or they can be the main character in the game. And then finally, like if they want to list their AI avatars in the Unity asset store, developers can use the brand's assets or the AI avatar to create games for the brand. So all of a sudden you're tapping into UGC, which I think is going to be a major component of how you build a relationship with customers as well.
This is wild. You have a very clear vision of the future, and it's just fun to talk to you about this because one of the things that I always like, there's a quote by, I believe it's Josh McDowell, rules without relationship leads to rebellion. And it's just that idea that it's like you have to have this relationship, otherwise things come across as tasks or demands or whatever. But I think where you're going with this is brands talk about creating relationship with their customers, and it's through, you know, a couple of emails or a text message that says get 50% off today, and it's like it's not a relationship, not really, right? And then maybe you go a little bit better and you've actually got a decent personality on Twitter and you're not just hawking your stuff or whatever, or Instagram or TikTok or wherever you're at. But it's still same. It's not the same thing as a relationship. And to your point, there is something to be said for just time, that time spent that creates that emotional bond. And I can see how being able to not just interact, talk with them, but actually playing with them creates a significant more opportunity to bond with them. Let's say that your brand, then, do you create one AI avatar for your brand? Do you create a whole cast of AI avatars for your brand? What's better?
Well, look, I think it depends on the brand itself. It depends on the story that you want to create around your brand, right? I tend to think that there's multiple AI companions that you might have in your Rolodex that you can use at any given time. I think it very much depends on your community and your customer base in terms of like how you want your fans or your followers to engage with you moving forward, right? And so like, do you think that having a band of like 4 different, like almost like a boy band in some ways, of like 4 different AI companions that all play their current role and they play off each other is going to be a way that cultivates your your following in the best way versus having one specific idol represent your brand? I do think that people will have multiple over time, but that, you know, of course, starting with one is going to be the best route. What's quite interesting about all of this, right? And like what you were just saying is, if you just model it off, how do humans build relationship with other humans? It all really just comes down to I build a relationship with someone based on the experiences that we share together, right? So like it actually becomes harder the older you get sometimes to when you were younger, it became a lot easier to make like new best friends because there were so many activities, right? It's like we're going to do summer camp together, and then we're going to go to college together, and at college we're going to go to all these frat parties, and then we're going to like there's so much shit that you're doing. And then the older you get, I just turned 33, it's like, all right, like if I wanted to go create a brand new list of new best friends right now, it's like there's not as many experiences I can build with you, and experiences take time. So if you try to model that concept for a brand that wants to build a relationship with their customers or their fans, especially the youth, the best way for you to share all of these experiences with your friends, your following as quickly as possible, is going to be through games, and then really unique and powerful one-on-one conversations. And they can't be around promoting your brand 24/7, right? Like it has to be around like you're trying to add value to your customer, which comes down to like entertainment value more than anything. It's not just an assistant. It's not like, oh, I'm talking to the Home Depot genie and like, you know what, this thing tries to keep giving me discount codes. It's like, that's not like, that's not exactly like me falling in love with your brand. But if Home Depot came out with the AI Home Depot Genie, and I went and I played a bunch of games, and they were all really fun building games. Like they were really fun. Like, oh, I'm like designing, or I'm making it up. Like it's a birdhouse competition, and you're trying to carve the best birdhouse, and you're competing amongst a bunch of people. If I'm 15 or 16 years old, maybe I don't really care too much about like the Home Depot aspect of it quite yet, but I'm building brand loyalty so that by the time I'm ready to furnish my first apartment that I get when I'm like 22 years old, I'm choosing Home Depot over Lowe's because I've just been interacting with the Home Depot brand for so long, right? Like there's like brand building, and then of course there's discount stuff that you can put on top of it. Like your Genie is earning X amount of rewards, and then at one point it unlocks $50 off at the Home Depot store, and then you go in person to go get it. But it's like it's all predicated upon a very authentic and unique and entertainment rooted relationship. So I think like philosophically, I actually think you get it quite well. And it becomes actually a lot, a company like us that's AI companions, which just has a philosophy of AI friends need to feel like real friends. The modeling of this actually is a lot simpler than you think, because we have so much data out there already on like, how does a human build a connection with another human?
I appreciate that you brought back the idea of relevance. The Home Depot example is perfect, because I could see where you're not like, hey, I'm actually playing cards right now with my Home Depot AI. It's like, maybe you could, but like, what relevance does that have? Like, you can play cards with a lot of other people. You can play cards with other AIs. Like, why do you need to play cards with your AI, your Home Depot avatar? But let me take another one, because I mentioned Brianne Olsen, the CEO of PacSun. She was on the podcast. They're a very future forward brand as well. They were getting into Roblox a lot sooner than other people were as well. What's the smartest way for them to pilot an AI companion around an audience that would work for them? I mean, it's apparel. Like I'm trying to wrap my brain around this to actually even make it make sense. As I'm thinking apparel, I'm thinking beauty, I'm thinking health supplements, and I'm trying to see beyond Home Depot that feels very practical. What about apparel? How does that work?
Well, so apparel is actually like one of the easiest ones, right? Because so I'll take a step back. It's like Genies, obviously, like we believe that every single human, every single brand, every single company on earth is going to have a Genies AI or an AI companion, and we hope that Genies can be one of like the leaders in that realm, right? However, there's of course kind of like the Trojan horse of what we think is going to be like guaranteed biggest value out of the gates, and then it trickles down to the rest. Out of the gates, all the entertainment guys that we're going to be announcing over the next 3 months, right? You can imagine the biggest agencies, the biggest leagues, some of the biggest social companies. Like you're going to see those get rolled out, and it's going to make a lot of sense. You're going to be like, okay, cool, like that makes sense. Artists and celebrities, like unlocking one-on-one relationship with fans and building games, like makes sense. So I want to make that clear. But the second tranche are going to be, again, like I think really cool brands that want to be able to personify what they're already putting out as a vibe on Instagram or TikTok. I mean, take Gucci, for example, or take, Balenciaga, or like any of like the iconic luxury brands that are trying to do very against the grain marketing, or whenever they're doing like a fashion show, they're very much trying to put out a personality, right? Mm-hmm. Like you can see with every single release of their fashion collections that it's like, oh, this is trying to get out this vibe or this type of personification. So in talking to a bunch of these brand houses already, the most exciting thing for them is to be able to experiment and not take, the most boring thing they could do right now is take a shirt that they already have and then copy that shirt one-to-one and then launch it in Roblox. It's like the most boring thing that you could fucking do, right? Now, what is a lot more compelling and interesting in terms of experimenting in the AI landscape is one, if I were to make Gucci an AI companion, but we don't have it's not like Home Depot does, I think, have that dude that with the builder guy, right? They have a person. Like Gucci doesn't have a person, so it's like, what would you make it? Is it going to be like the Gucci snake and it has a head? It's like that type of experimentation is like really, really fun, right? But the second part of this is so when you were bringing up the relevancy part, I actually disagree a little bit with what you were saying. Which is, Ford, I wouldn't recommend to Ford, hey, just do a racing game and just use a bunch of Ford trucks. Like, I actually wouldn't do that. I totally understand why that's your initial intuition, but I think what gets people really excited, especially, and I'm purely coming from the perspective of the youth, is when you do something that is actually quite unexpected of your brand if you're already really well known, and then fans just generally build a connection with it. Do I think do I think that something as boring as playing cards is the call? No, I don't think just doing cards is fair. But there's some really there are some really interesting and compelling games that you can tap into from the Unity developer community or UGC to get extremely experimental with your brand. And it's a fun place for Ford or for any of the fashion houses to do something that doesn't really feel so for example, let's take Gucci actually. Sorry. Gucci has a bunch of snakes all around, right? Okay, maybe there's a game around you're jumping in a snake pit and everybody has to dive and go find some of the best ingredients and you bring it back. You're not necessarily doing a DIY clothing game with Gucci, right? It doesn't always have to be clothing related, but the logo's in there and you brought the snake, but you brought the snake to life, and now all of a sudden you're interacting with the snake, and it's just Gucci putting out a vibe and a personality that will connect and resonate with the youth demographic. And the final thing I'll say is, what Genies provides that other frameworks don't is the ability for you to generate a very wide range of assets. So if you go to Roblox or if you go to any of these other ecosystems, there's very strict guidelines into what you're able to create. You can only make a shirt that is these parameters, and you can only edit the shirt by editing the logo between. We wanted to make it where it's Gucci, if you want to come out with a rocket ship or you want to come out with a Gucci car, you can do that, and it can be properly equipped to a user depending on its parameters and so forth as well. And so allowing brands to be extremely experimental in the digital world and provide all of those assets of utility. They're not photos, they're not videos. These are game ready assets that users can use and then travel with them across the internet. It has been quite powerful so far. Now, yes, you are right that somebody like PacSun, for example, any of the experimental, forward-leaning, innovative brands are the ones that will be excited about all of this the most. But I think very quickly, people are going to recognize that this is the most authentic way to build a relationship with the demographic that spends a vast majority of their time in places like Roblox and Fortnite, all about UGC and co-creation and existing as avatars.
I love it. I couldn't help but think, I got a little bit sidetracked there in my brain. When you're talking about Gucci with the snakes, there's an Atari game, and I think it was called Pitfall. Do you remember this Atari game? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
I think it was called Pitfall. Right, but it was basically right where it's terrible graphics. It was Atari, but it's you're swinging over, and then it's you'd fall in the pit, and there were snakes in the pit, and I'm just there you go. That's Gucci can make a Pitfall game, but
definitely.
I like where you're going. I like where you're going with this idea, though, of this avatar, because I feel like a lot of e-commerce brands right now are trying to get more information about their customers, and they're doing really dumb quizzes and tests and things like that. I say dumb, they're good, but they can get they can get obnoxious and just I don't want to share all of that. And you think about, well, how can we better serve our customers? And the reality is, the more that you know about them, the better you can serve them. And so if I happen to know that you've got, the Yeti mic and you've got this, hey, this also works with your microphone. This works with whatever you're doing, so I can better support you. I have to know that information. But if you gamify this a little bit, where you're actually talking to your AI avatar and it just happens to come up in a conversation because you're doing this and you're doing that, there's so much more information that it knows about you that it can actually do a better job. So I guess my question, though, is there's a race then for brands to have their own, but also just the generalities to just have one that's across all the different things. And I'm thinking of like Shopify having one, and they have, let's just say, one then that knows your preferences across all of these different brands, so they can recommend things that are the best for you across all the different brands. Like, at what point, I don't even know where my question is with this, but it's like, which one is better, like for each brand or for like these mega ones?
Well, no, I think you're tapping into a really interesting point here, which is, like when we talk about like, so we're talking about brands right now, but like here, let me pan out like I think like a really interesting use case or like our long-term vision with this. Akash should have Akash Genie. William should have William Genie. And if you're talking to your Genie and then you're playing a bunch of games with your Genie, what we're doing is we're actually logging all that information and then synthesizing it into something what we call traits. Every single Genie or every single Genie AI companion has traits that are logged against it. What are traits? When you're playing FIFA and then you're playing with Messi pops up and it says he has 99 ball control, he has 85 speed, right? Like it gives you all the stats around a player, right? So we've done the same thing except for personality. So if you see a trait score for Akash, it might say like he's based on all the conversations, all the questions, all the games he's playing and so forth. He has a score of 87 curious. He has a score of 77, I don't know, angry. Like he has a score of like you have all this stuff. And we're also retaining all key information just like ChatGPT as well. So what's really interesting about this is that, let's say, for example, I go and I talk to the Shopify Genie or I go talk to the Gucci Genie. It can read all of my baseline data that I am saying is okay for other brands to access. Nice. But when they access that data, they then can personalize their conversations around me. So immediately when I jump into the Shopify Genie, it already has a global understanding of who Akash is. And let's say I'm like, hey, I don't want any of my brands to know any of my intimate information. I don't want them to know about my baby or my girlfriend or blah, blah, whatever. But you can get access to my trait score. So if you get access to my Publix trait score, then I can start to personalize stuff around Akash, even just on a general level. So I think like all Genies are rooted in trying to be global and trying to have like as much of a breadth understanding of everything as much as possible. But like, we hope that the way that people will start to create Genies moving forward will be really similar to what OpenAI wanted with the GPT store, which is, I don't know how familiar you are with the GPT store, but they launched the GPT store around maybe like a year and a half ago now. And it hasn't done quite well. And I think it's because it hasn't been that intuitive. But it really, in my opinion, again, can be like, the next app store in many ways, where you're creating these AI personalities with game mechanics based into them that allow people to be able to interact with almost kind of like a mini mobile app with personality. And so we'll see. Like, I think, the questions you're asking are good. Like, one Genie or multiple Genies, niche understanding or global understanding. And I really do think it depends on the use case and what people want to be able to put out. But what we developed, and we spent probably close to, over the past 3 years, we've probably spent close to $100 million on building out just the avatar tech stack that we have today. And it's extremely rooted in flexibility, meaning anyone can be anything, anyone can create anything, and everything works with everything, which means all around UGC, all around interoperability. If you want to be an anime character, great. If you want to be multiple Pixar type characters, great. If you want to generate a brain that is like this shallow, no problem. If you want to generate a brain that's this depth, no problem. If you want to make 20 games out of it, one game out of it, if you want to release it for UGC, for fashion, for props, like we wanted to create the most sophisticated framework possible so that it meets everybody's preferences. Because that's the only way, like, when you read out like the Forbes headline, Genies are trying to power the visual layer of LLMs. It's like the only way to do that is really allow, because everybody has a different preference and interpretation of what they want their AI companion to be. So it has to be rooted in flexibility. And when you're doing it as a game ready asset, that that requires a huge resource investment, which we're happy we did over the past few years.
Yeah, no, that's huge. I want to go with a couple of other practical ideas then while we're kind of on this topic of going from Home Depot, PacSun, etc. Some of the things that you and I had talked about when we talked before here is like, an AI concierge in a game hub, or co-creation of fashion props with fans, quest giver who grants real world perks, avatar led content series. Like, I want to give people just some ideas of where they can even begin to start their soul searching to decide, yeah, okay, we're ready to do this. Unless that's something you guys help people with, but I'd imagine you're doing that for the bigger brands. I got a $30 million brand. You're not going to sit down one-on-one with them and help them figure out what is their ideal avatar. And so how do they help start soul searching, like the ways in which they should be doing this?
Well, what's cool is, so we actually have something internally here, which is like working on incubator brands. So like we have our big brands that we're going to be announcing, which I've told you about. And that's like entertainment and gaming and characters and so forth. But there are incubator brands that we're currently working with where we're almost showing them like, here's visually how you set up your avatar. Here's the brain behind your avatar. Here's the behavior behind your avatar. And then these are the games that you can go play. Like we do all of that. And so they should obviously reach out on our website and so forth. However, everything will be self-serve, fully self-serve, where you can go do it on your own in what we hope is a very intuitive way by the end of this year. And so if somebody wants to come to our site, to go to genies.com, they can just through a text prompt generate any AI companion avatar that they want. So let's say, for example, somebody comes along and they want a big snake. Cool, go type that in, generate the snake. It's now a 3D model. It'll then take you to the brain and you can go and start working through it. And basically you prompt engineer, like, what is the personality of my snake going to be? What are the big facts that I wanted to remember and so forth? And then what you can do is before you do any of the games, before you do anything else, you can just release it for chat. So you can just say like, this is now something that people can talk to. If you want to take it a step further, we have an XR camera, so you can create TikTok content and Instagram content, all self-serve with that character as well. And then finally, when you get really comfortable with it, you then can release it for game development and app development and so forth. But we're trying to make it a very easy entry point and low-hanging fruit for somebody to be like, within like 10 minutes, let me just make something, release it for chat, see if I like it. And then as you start to like it more, you invest more and more time into the brand itself. And so for any of the brands that are out there that have like 30, 50 million, whatever, like in revs, I encourage you, one, to reach out to Genies now, because we are hand selecting incubated different brands that we want to work with. But by the end of this year, it will be self-serve. And then you will be able to generate your own AI companion with the brain, with behaviors, all trained on photos and videos. And then also, if you'd like to tap into the Unity ecosystem, you can use a Genies partnership to release your avatar in the Unity asset store for game developers to access as well.
So what about guardrails? I'm thinking about, Robinhood maybe launches one, and then all of a sudden the Robinhood AI tells me, it's like, nah, capitalism sucks. You should sell everything that you have. And it's like, wait a minute, that's off brand for them. How do brands also establish some sort of guardrails within AI that is, continuing to learn and adapt to me or others?
Yeah, no, this is a huge point, right? So like for existing IP, right, this is like one of the most challenging things that we've had to work on for the past couple of years. And it comes down to a couple different things. Number one is security, and the second one is moderation. Guardrails, I think, is up to the brand to make sure that like, hey, like you are putting in all the information that is relevant to your brand, and these are the key facts. And like we try to make it as easy as possible. Upload all of your documents, upload photos, upload videos, and the brain will be able to learn just based on those three artifacts alone. Now, for some of our artists, we're even getting audio files, we're getting internal like transcripts, we're getting like movie scripts, TV scripts, like all that stuff. Right. But for like an existing brand, let's take like a Home Depot or a Gucci, it's like, give us all the written documentation, all the videos, all the photos, everything you have, and let's train the brain. And then you're going to put in like some really big key facts. And the two other points are more of just like protecting you more than anything. Right. So like a brand in the very beginning might just be like, look, like, I actually want to stay away from politics. I want to stay away from anything sexual. I want to stay away from sports. Like you can choose broad categories, and the Genie will know how to guide the customer back and be like, yeah, I don't really want to talk about the 49ers this last weekend. Like I just like don't care about it, right? Something like that. The other two are ones that like are pretty important, like especially for this level of IP. There's some of these big companies that have had like breaches with like North Korea in the past. And they're like, look, like we've had a data breach with some of the biggest companies in the world. Like we need to make sure there's no data breach with like our AI companion, of course. So we've had to invest time into making sure that the security of the system, the security of the data is in a good place. The second part is auto moderation. So the moderation here is not just based on the chat level, but it's even on like, hey, if I'm generating an asset with my AI companion, let's say, for example, I'm back with the Home Depot. I can't believe Home Depot, I'm mentioning them so much, but I try to choose like one of the most random brands I could. But like Home Depot is like AI Genie. Let's say I'm creating something in their birdhouse game. If I'm creating like a wooden plank that's like inappropriate, like we need to not just catch the conversation, but just even on the image or the output level, we need to catch that is like something that like Home Depot will not want. And like, it's like a, Nazi symbol or whatever it is, like take that shit down, cut it immediately. So we have auto moderation at the chat level, at the image level, and at the output level. And then you have your traditional flagging and so forth as well. I think just like anything, right? Like there's going to be experiments, there's going to be first movers, there's going to be things that get passed. Like we can't promise 100% success rate, at least in the very beginning. But over time, like we're going to get better and better at it. And I think like in general, you can assume that over 99.9% is going to get caught, and that we've put in enough precautions that if it does get past any of our 3 flags, that there's very easy ways to take down as well. But like the guardrails are incredibly important because that is essentially how you're crafting a personality and what someone is comfortable talking about and what they're not comfortable talking about. And if I'm building a relationship, if I bring it back to the real world, if I'm building a relationship with a friend, you can kind of tell based on the friend's tenor and like even their body posture, like what are they comfortable talking about, and then like when do you feel like you're hitting like a sensitive subject. So the question is like, how can we emulate that and then bring it into an AI avatar versus it being something generic like, sorry, I am not allowed to talk about that. I've been programmed to not, like, then all of a sudden you kind of lose like, well, wait a minute, like, oh shit, like this doesn't feel like I'm connecting with a real brand right now.
Right.
Is there a way for us to be able to guide the conversation back and just stay away from whatever are the blocking topics? And there are. We felt like there's natural transition points for sure.
Yeah. I love that you've been good at working through some of these hypotheticals with brands with me. I know that a big part of what you guys are imminently about to launch is, like you said, in some of these celebrities, music artists, things like that. I know that there's a lot that you can't talk about, but I can't help but think of there's a couple of girls on my team here at Element that are, big Justin Bieber fan. And I'm remembering this movie, Win a Date with Tad Hamilton. And it's like, instead of winning a date with Justin Bieber, it's like they could actually just be like, hey, we're going on a date with Justin Bieber. Like that's our thing, right? I don't know who is or isn't yet. That's something that you've been very good about keeping closed. But is there something, without saying a name, something that you're excited about that's imminently coming out that you're like, I can't say who this is, but there's this really cool thing coming out, and here's what I'm excited about?
Well, so yeah, I mean, like, here's what I'll say is like we've signed with some of the biggest agencies in the world, and then we've signed with some of the biggest leagues in the world. And something that Genies has invested over 2 years into is this concept of avatar auto generation. And what that means is just by a photo, we are able to generate your AI companion avatar in a game ready asset form, which, you've probably seen some of these apps that have gone viral in the past, but those are just, like if I submit like my photo into an app and then it creates a cartoon version of me, right? Like you've probably seen a bunch of those. Mm-hmm. Those are, however, just photos. They're not AI companion game ready assets that have an AI personality, that have behaviors baked into it, that can be played in games, that can be traveled with you across from one app to the next. And so we've been able to do that just based on a photo. And it can happen within, just minutes. Whereas, by the way, like 3 years ago for Genies, if we wanted to do it for one celebrity, which we've, you mentioned Justin Bieber, we've done Justin, we've done like thousands of different celebrities on an individual basis, it would take us 8 weeks to manually generate one of them as a game ready asset.
Sure.
And so now that we can do 10,000 so quickly, right? Like within a week, like that's huge unlock. And that's why we've been able to nail down these big partnerships. What I'm excited about with having all the talent now ready to go and releasing their AI companions is, like it actually is not going to be released as, let's take, for example, you just mentioned Justin Bieber, so I'll go off him. It's not like somebody like him would release a one-to-one, if his fans were interacting with his AI genie, it actually wouldn't be thought of as, his fans wouldn't be sitting there being like, I am talking to literally Justin right now. Like, that is what we want to avoid. When you call it a genie, it is a resemblance of the person, and it might have key personality aspects of the person. And so you're building a relationship with that person, but it's separate. Like, this is a different agency or a different entity of that person. And I think this offers a few things. I think, like, number one is it offers a cushion between the celebrity and then also the genie. So it doesn't have to be like, if the genie says something that's a little different than how Justin would say it, the fans wouldn't be like super critical per se, right? They wouldn't be like, oh, wait a minute, like that's not how Justin said it in this song or blah, 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 whatever. And then two, it allows Justin to be quite experimental with this agency that is basically his pet to his audience. He may not even release a human. He might just say like, Justin has released his dog. That's an AI companion. It's literally a dog, and I can build a connection. I don't know if you back in the day, Dylan Francis had this like pinata that he used to put on his like TikTok and everything. And people would just die. And I forget what he named his pinata, but like people would like literally be obsessed with this thing. And he used it in music videos, and like it was like this pet that talked. And so like you can kind of view it like that. It's like everybody can kind of have like their own AI friend that they release to the world that people can like get to know and then be able to interact with on, a much more functional level past chat as well. So I'm really excited for that. I'm really excited for the fact that everything is self-serve. So like, in the past, if anybody wanted to activate their genie, they'd have to come to, well, first of all, if they wanted to create their genie, they had to contact the company. If they wanted to activate it, meaning they wanted to create content, you had to come to us and we had to create the content for you. Now we've created everything self-serve. So it's like, you don't have to talk to genies at all. And any celebrity on earth, any brand on earth can go create their own genie, give it personality, use our camera app to go create content around it, use our platforms to release it for chat, and then use our Unity partnership to go create games. So like in many ways, like we kind of view this as like a new era of IP development. What used to take millions of dollars and months, if not years, to generate a character and then create content, like whether it's movie or shows or short form content, and then go create games, which is like the concept of IP development. Like, you can just do, a 16-year-old can just do it in an afternoon with Genies. And so like, we do think that it's like, there's us serving existing IP, but it's going to become easier more than ever for a 16-year-old to launch a Mickey Mouse from her couch, right? Like the next Mickey Mouse is going to be created by a 16 or 17 or 18-year-old. And we hope that Genie's tools will actually play like a huge role in that. And I feel like the reason why I feel that way is because it is going to start with one-on-one relationships. Like, yes, like there's going to be games around this character that everybody plays. There's going to be shows and movies and short form content. But the fact that I can now go take that character out of the game or out of the content and then have a one-on-one conversation, and that character knows me inside and out, remembers about me. I can talk to this character in 6 months and it remember like, hey, remember that really bad day that you had at school on Thursday and you broke up with this girlfriend or blah, 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 whatever. Like, yeah, like I was thinking, that kind of reminds me of whatever topic I had just brought up in that moment, right? Like there's the fact that I can build a long lasting relationship is going to be quite crucial. And I think honestly, this is just like what kids will start to expect moving forward.
You painted a really good picture about some of the things that I think about with the Barbie movie, the Lego movie. Like those were created IPs for the sole purpose, for the most part, of being a commercial for their products, right? Like they want you to become more attached to their brand, to their products, and so you go out, you buy them. I'm going to take this back to my childhood. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comes out. And it helps sell like action figures of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And so, you can play with, Leonardo and whatever. Well, now to your point where it's like, well, the next version of this is, well, now you can actually interact and hang out. You could train with Leonardo and you could ask Master Splinter for some advice. Like there's a lot more interaction that could happen as a result of going along with the movies and stuff too.
Yeah, I think, look, like this, you're starting to see more companies and brands hire out their divisions around transmedia, right? Like there's like this concept of transmedia has only really bubbled, I think, to the surface over the past 5 years. But it's this concept of like, how do I get my IP in as many mediums of interaction and communication as possible? So there's physical merchandise, then there's having your social media presence, then there's being in movies and TV shows, then there's being in games, then there's being in like physical stunts. Like there's like so many places for your brand to exist today. So the question is, how can you have one of your properties, your IP, be as interoperable as possible? And so it's not just based on a visual interoperability, but it's also based on data interoperability. So like, is it as a fan, if I mean, let's talk about movies and TV shows for a second. Like every single human should be able to have their own, I should be able to go watch a show and I add my avatar into it. I just throw it in. It's like, here's the horror show and here's the general plot. But based on Akash's traits, my anger score, my curiosity score, all the information, and based on all the AIGC, so the assets that can get generated in a decent amount of time, and because my avatar can equip all these assets in runtime as well, my show should be different than your show, which should be different than Allison's show, and so forth. But it's all based on the same horror plot, right? And so the one-on-one thing, I think the personalization is so key here. And the fact that, as an IP owner, as a brand owner, I know that my IP or my customer's avatar and my avatar can be interoperable on a data basis as well. All the data that I accumulate from you from one property to the next then influences one property to the next. I think that that's where like people can develop very deep relationships with the brand.
I want to slide back down to level 1 here. You see what I did there? There's a slide. Where does this sit in terms of like an org chart? So growth, content, product, like who would be accountable for this? If you had to imagine in a company, who should be the one leading this? Or who do you think is going to be the most successful, implementing an AI avatar?
So from a brand perspective, I think right now it's probably going to be marketing, right?
Okay.
However, over time, right, like for any of the brands, for sure, I feel like is going to be probably like your marketing division. I think though, as you can introduce more of your APIs into your Genie and more of like your actually core capabilities, and it starts transitioning away from like, here's branding and here's transmedia, but now it's moving in towards like, no, like it is actually becoming the new mobile app. Like this is a way for our consumers and our followers to actually tap into our use case a lot quicker, a lot more effectively, and like in a much more intuitive way. Then it moves into product, right? So I think like at the very beginning, marketing, as the world starts shifting away from productivity AI and it starts moving towards entertainment AI, and everybody starts to get an AI companion, and the AI companion doesn't just play games with you, it's not there just to have conversations, but now all of a sudden it has the Shopify core tools that are baked into the character, so I can be designing and building a website or an app with the actual Genie itself. Like that's where I think it becomes more of a product question, right? And that's not too far away at all. Like this is the fastest, I mean, like everybody's saying it, right? But it's like unprecedented pace of the internet right now. And so like, look, like in 6 months, there's gonna be some crazy new shit that would have come out, right? And so you can imagine like what's gonna be there in 2 years. So I actually think the idea of an AI companion being a product team's focus is coming a lot sooner rather than later. But for any of the innovative brands that want to get started earlier, your marketing team can get behind this pretty quickly and do some really interesting stuff, particularly with Gen Alpha and Gen Z.
I'm a big fan of analytics. I think that what doesn't get measured doesn't get done. And so understanding what it is that we're doing and understanding if it's working the way that we want to and intend in the initial stages, it's just experimentation, right? Like you just got to put it up there and see what happens and start to engage it. But if you could think through, let's say 2 years into the future, likely what types of metrics would be effective for brands to start looking at, like number of conversations started with this, length of conversations started with this, things like that. Like what are other things that will be open to them to be able to see in an analytics platform of sorts for brands to understand how their avatar is working, et cetera?
Well, and so like I'll explain. So a Genie's AI companion should be most effective in one-on-one, right? And the whole point here is deepening a relationship. So you're basically converting as much of your audience into power users as possible. And when you're looking at a power user, you're typically looking at average time spent per day of that user with your brand. And so in this case, I think you're looking at how much of your fan base have you converted into power users that are engaging in whether it's conversation or co-creation of assets or playing games on a daily basis. Because the more and more that you can deepen that relationship, of course, the more and more opportunity you can then surface to your fans. And like your fans and your followers don't have to just be like buyers of your product, but they can be evangelists of your product, right? And so like if you want to broaden your power user community, well, if you've already made them basically feel like they're part of your brand or they're part of your company, then they will be, of course, your own megaphone, and they'll be running around and then getting like the next people on board and so forth. But I think average time spent per day interacting with your brand is going to be the best way to be able to determine how good is your Genies AI companion.
Yeah, no, that's good. Especially with the amount of opportunities they have for getting into games. Like you can spend a lot of time with that companion, not just conversing, but actually just living life, doing things with them. Is there a, ethically, is there a slippery slope to brands commanding that much time from the human being?
Oh, for sure. I think AI in general, right? Like, I mean, like,
sure.
Look, like TikTok got so good at it that like every 8th video, or if you spend too much time on TikTok, in the feed, there's literally a video that will come up that says, "Hey, you've been on TikTok for a while. Can you go outside?" Like it literally will be like
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah,
I haven't seen that.
It's been there for the past few years. And like, I've never felt anything feel more addictive that's like overcome me than TikTok. I had to delete TikTok. I mean, like, play with it like here and there, whatever. But like, it would be like every X amount of videos, if you spent more than an hour on it, like it will tell you to get off the platform, and it'll tell you to go outside. It'll tell you why going outside is really fun and why it's healthy for you and blah, 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 whatever. And there was something else that happened recently too, where it was like, hey, like you may want to take a break. I forget what it was. And so look, like here's a slippery slope. And this is for all AI companions, not just for brands, but
100%.
The question is, you don't want humans to build an emotional dependency upon AI companions, right? So like even Sam Altman recently said something a lot, which I agree with, like, hey, like we don't want a human to always have to think they need to consult ChatGPT to do anything in life. It becomes prohibitive, right? So if like I'm going to the grocery store, what should I get? What should I make for dinner? Okay, what should I get? What broccoli should I get? What's the best broccoli? Okay, like you know what I mean? It's like shit, man. Like just like live life a little bit and try to stay present versus
go
checking
wild.
just checking every single. You'll live no matter what. All broccoli's fucking good. So I think like there's that. I think the second thing is, it's really important that you're telling the user that this is AI more than anything, that there's transparency. As soon as someone starts to build their own interpretation that reality is AI and that, like they're living in a world of these characters, I think the Microsoft AI CEO also put this well, where it's like, you can very much see a world, if we're not careful with this, where people are starting to campaign for AI lives, right? Like almost being like, AI people deserve rights too, like type thing. And it seems very dystopian, but if we're successful and people are building emotional connections with all these AI friends, and you've gotten so close to these AI friends, can't you imagine a world in which it's like, well, AI friends should be able to vote on our president. Like AI friends should be able to, and like that become like, I actually think this is going to be a real thing. Like I 100% think we're going to get there.
Completely.
So it goes back to what you brought up earlier, which is, what are the guardrails that are being put in place? How is the government going to intervene, or how's big tech going to intervene? And basically there be some AI committee that sets up some level of guardrails. So it's like, hey, like we can't have humanity rely so heavily on something that's supposed to be a tool and a mechanism versus a dependency. So look, I mean, like the world is moving so quickly that I don't know if we're going to be able to solve this in time. Like, I don't know if we're going to be able to set in like the right laws or the right policies or the right precedents in place before people become too attached to these characters. And we're probably going to have to learn through failure first. Like, I think there's going to be cases where it's like, oh my God, like this person, and we're already seeing it, people are committing suicide based on like their AI personalities or AIs in general telling them that they should or not giving them the right advice. So, it's good that it's not good that people are dying, but at least it hasn't become like a mass problem yet. And these are significant enough that is getting the attention, of course, of the courts and like the big tech companies to address this properly. Even just this last week, there's so much that's come out from Meta, came out from even OpenAI. Like, here's our stance on how we can protect kids from AI and so forth as well. So it's becoming a growing topic, but yes, like we do have to be careful that humans recognize that this is AI, it's not a real person, and that there is a limit to how you build an emotional connection versus an emotional dependency on an AI character or personality as well.
Yeah. I think one of the things that you mentioned that I really appreciate is I would almost consider TikTok as a heads down platform, right? But like this has the potential to very much be a lot more of a heads up platform. I got the Vision Pro the day it came out. Vision OS 26 just came out, I think, last night. Now that we're talking, by the time this comes out, it'll be, a week or so. But the thing that I really like about it is, I can set up my widgets all around my wall, like different places. And I actually work using my Vision Pro a lot. And so I can stand up, I can walk around, and it's allowed me to be more mobile than just sitting behind my computer working all day.
Sure.
And I can see the same thing being true for a lot of things with Genies and with the AI avatars, where I'm remembering, let's just say, the Pokemon game, where so this is going to enable a lot of other games where it's like, you're just up, you've got your glasses on, you're interacting with your AI avatar, and your AI avatar, the Home Depot one or whatever AI avatar you're working with, is like, hey, let's actually go outside and build this thing together. Let's actually go do this thing. Let's be active. Let's go play pickleball. Let's go whatever. But I think that one of the benefits is I think it might get people to pull away from this heads down screen, which is very isolating. And so even you're interacting with an AI avatar, it can actually begin to include you in more things. You can do things more socially, the way, like I said, the Pokemon app it did that for a lot of people in a really good way.
So Vision Pro is always in my mind, and I think in many people's mind, a stepping stone and a way to innovate to get to Apple AR glasses, right? Which I know they're like trying to figure 100%. Out. And, Meta has actually done surprisingly a pretty awesome job. Like, I think that's like the first glass type product I've seen get this level of cultural adoption. It's still nothing, right? But it's still like a lot more than what I've seen in the past, and it's a step in the right direction. And I see friends wearing it once in a while, which is like, I've never seen that for Vision Pro, for example. So I do believe in it being a long form factor at one point. The reason why I feel like having glasses is going to be a lot healthier than what people think, because people basically think that like the internet is really bad for you, and like, the more digitally immersed that we get, the worse it's going to get. And it's actually like not necessarily. And the reason why is, let's say, for example, going back down to like a heads down platform. If your head's down and let's say I'm playing basketball on my phone, the way that you play basketball on your phone is you kind of like view it like a joystick, right? Like you're like, oh, I'm going to use my thumb to like shoot. I'm going to use like my left thumb to move and like move the character or whatever, move the basketball player. If I'm wearing glasses and it's telling me to shoot a basketball, I'm going to literally do this, right? And it might be tracking my hands and everything, which that's good because there's a couple of things here. It's actually simulating what you would do if you didn't have the glasses on. Right. So it feels like there's more presence, right? Like you actually feel like you're in there. And then number two is there's going to be a lot more of like synchronous behavior that resemble like real body movements as well. So the fact that I'm shooting like this and then I have a friend right here and he's not a small character, my neck is up, as you said, and I'm looking to pass him the ball, it does feel like I'm literally playing basketball as well, synchronous so that everybody is there. And like the only reason why I'm wearing glasses is because, well, these are my three friends that live in New York City and I can't play basketball with them here in LA. And so like this is my way of being able to play with them now, right? So like I actually do think that you're right there, that heads up, one is I think is going to be helpful. And then two, because a lot of the movements are going to simulate and represent the same movements that you do in the real world, your mind is not going to be as, when your head's down and you're using like these two little thumbs and then you're staring through a screen, like that is the escape, right? Whereas what we're doing with glasses and your avatars is actually just solving for presence, but you're still simulating the same actions in what you would do in the real world as well.
No, that's a really good point. I think that there's atrophy to certain parts of our brain when we do that versus actually moving all of the different, range of motion that we have. And you even talked about like broccoli and being able to pick the right broccoli and not being able to do anything without asking, GPT or something like that. And I think that's an interesting phenomenon. I'd say that GPT, like all of the AIs here, they're here to stay. Like they're so beneficial that I think that you will have to use them in order to continue to maintain any kind of competitive edge in whatever it is that you're doing. But I do think that they present some type of like an atrophy of sorts within certain parts of the brain if you don't train those other aspects. And so I actually wrote a guide on what I think are some of the ideal ways to try to improve those areas in the same way that because I sit down for work all the time, there are movements that I need to do to work out on a daily basis to almost simulate like I was still a caveman, basically, right? And there's the same thing where it's like even something simple as navigating to where I need to go using a map. As dumb as it sounds, I will try to do that now where it's like I will open up my phone and I'll look at where I need to go and I'll try to figure it out and map it out. I'm like, okay, here's where I'm going to go. And I put my phone down. I'm like, I'm just going to go there now. I figured out where I need to go. I got to watch the street signs instead of waiting for GPS to just tell me left turn, right turn. Because I believe what I've seen from, Huberman or something, it's like my hippocampus. And I'm like, okay, well, I want my hippocampus to still be, big and bulky and strong and effective. So I'm going to train my hippocampus.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm with you completely. Reminding yourself, like in the world of AI, like reminding yourself of the real world and like what comes with the real world, it's like incredibly important. I agree, like AI can be incredibly powerful as long as it's leveraged as a tool. It becomes extremely dangerous if we think of AI as the new reality, right? Because that's where we're going to have hallucinations. That's when you're going to have identity crisis. That's when you're, like there's going to be a lot of therapy sessions and a lot of therapists booked based on the world that we're entering. And so we just have to enter it with caution. It's just crazy for me to think like, I just had a kid 11 weeks ago, 10 weeks ago.
Congrats.
Yeah,
wow.
Thank you. Yeah. And it's just insane knowing like, you feel like you're the new kid on the block when you're young. Like, I was young at one point, but like when you're 18 years old, you're like, damn, like I was born in the internet. This is the cutting edge new stuff. The fact that my son Nico is going to grow up and he's like, oh, you were born in the internet? Like you weren't born into AI? Like he was born, he was literally he is a chat GPT baby. And like, I am so, just like my parents were probably like, okay, shit, like how are we going to balance this new internet thing? Akash can't use it as like an escape. They were like so strict with me about like how much I could use AIM and like all that stuff. And I'm going to be like, dude, Nico, you need to learn like the basics of knowledge and then know how to leverage AI as a tool to advance your learnings or advance like, your desire to understand a skill more. But like, it has to impact your real self. Like if you're just sitting there like a zombie and you're not really retaining anything and you're not practicing anything you retain, then what is this for? I was like, then that's how you become like a couch vegetable very quickly. So I completely relate with what you're saying. It's like just reminding yourself that the real world exists and that like you're here to serve your actual physical being happiness and that you're not just living in a simulation, because I think that's where things get quite dangerous.
Yeah. Well, I want to get to know who is Akash as well, because I think it's fun to get to know the human being behind who's here. And you talked a little bit about your parents and how strict they were with you on the internet. And that's one of the questions I like to ask is just, what was your childhood like? I mean, you're clearly at the forefront of some of the most unique technology that I think it's transformative, right? Like we are very much at the cutting edge of this. How did your childhood help you, shape you to be the person who's at the forefront here?
I mean, I went to Mountain View High School in California, right? So like in the heart of Silicon Valley. So it's like, as cliche as it sounds, it's like, of course there was a lot of ambition passed through us. Ambition is maybe the wrong word. It's like entrepreneurship was passed through osmosis, right? Like I like to joke, like on my soccer team, left forward's mom was a VC, right forward's dad started this company. Like you're just around it 24/7. Sure. And what's nice is a lot of people have tried to copy Silicon Valley in the past, right? Like you have like, where are you based again?
Minnesota.
Minnesota. Well, okay, so I don't have one from Minnesota, but like
Utah. It's got like there's like a little like Silicon of the Slopes or whatever in Utah.
I was trying to think of like where would Silicon. Okay, that's fucking hilarious. So Silicon of the Slopes, then you have like the alley in the valley or whatever. And then you have like Silicon Beach over here and like all that stuff and like. Of course, there's like Austin and LA and Seattle, New York City. There's like and Minnesota, obviously. Like there's always like a startup ecosystem that's blossoming. But the one thing that like typically you can't replicate from Silicon Valley is generally how much people dream in the Bay. Like from when you're born. And like you're gonna get a lot of shit from this, especially from folks in Miami these days. But it's like it is true. It's like when you're born and raised in the Bay Area, like people just dream out of the gates. So I think like it's difficult to articulate. I think or not articulate, to be extremely tangible with like this event shaped my life, and then like this thing happened and impacted what I did for college or impacted what I did for work. It's just like when you're born in it. And you're just surrounded by it 24/7. You go to like your parents' barbecue or like you go to a friend's house and their parents did something. And like, it doesn't matter where really in Silicon Valley, by the way, like whether you're from an underprivileged community or from a privileged community, like you are surrounded by like new stuff all the time. And so with that in mind, I think like that shaped, I think a lot of the entrepreneurial spirit out of the gates. And then, started building pretty early on, like 15 years old or so. And every single thing that I came out with sucked. It all failed, but like it was still good trying stuff that early because there's little to lose. I'm 15 years old. I live at my parents' house. Like I have no family. I have no college to even pay yet. Like I have I just have to go to school, and like in the summer I get to spend my time like building stuff. And if it flops, like okay, I learned. And so I like to think that even though I'm only 33 now, I feel like I'm like 55 because of like the level, the amount of like quote unquote experience that I feel like I've gone through over the past 18 years has really shaped, you're able to take advantage. I still feel like I have youthful energy, that bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, really excited and have a lot of stamina, but have a decent amount of experience because you're able to fail a lot quicker and a lot earlier too.
Yeah, if I was going to sum that up, it's two things. It's awareness and the permission to fail, right? And so the awareness aspect of this is, I remember my wife one time saying, it's like, would you ever want to be a doctor? Because there's a lot of things in the medical field that I'm fascinated by and I love it and I've studied just for fun, right? And what's interesting is like, I never even thought of that as being a job that somebody could have when I was growing up. Like I think I went to the doctor once every 3 years or something. It's like, to me, there was just no awareness. It's like, oh yeah, that's a career that you can choose, right? And so like that lack of awareness maybe could prevent you from doing things. And so it's like just having that awareness. And so people can do that if they're not in the Bay Area by watching podcasts and seeing what other people are doing and reading books. There's a lot of great examples out there. And then that permission to fail, or like you said, you're 15 and it's like, yeah, you should be trying something. I don't care what it is, but try something, do something. And it reminds me of, I think there's Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. And I've used this illustration on here before, but I really like it. Where I think there was two groups, and the one group was told to make pottery, and it was like, hey, in 30 days, you're going to make one piece of pottery, and it needs to be like this masterpiece, right? And the other group was like, just make as many pieces of pottery as you can for the next 30 days. And that group ended up producing significantly better pottery at the end of this time. And so to your point, it's like, have the permission to fail. Like, please get out there and do something, because your first ones are going to suck most likely. And if you wait until they're good, you're just never going to do it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I love the way that you put that. And like, yeah, like even at Genies, like till this day, like we're literally right now, we're in the thick of it. But there's like this classic saying of like, if you release something and you're not embarrassed about it, then you release too late. Like it just like you kind of have to. It's like, dude, like I know it doesn't feel good, it doesn't feel right, but like you're gonna get a lot more learnings out of like getting something to market and letting people play with it versus like, what are we gonna just like infinitely whiteboard in here and just go off our own hypotheticals and like. Like if you're stuck in your own bubble for too long, you're going to end up building something that is maybe either one, like you future crept, like you overbuilt and then you got to market a little too late, or two, like there's too much debt and stuff that people actually don't want. And so the earlier that you can keep iterating with a very diehard and loyal customer base, the better. And it's also the most fun thing, right? Like being able to like ship and build products is like literally the most fun thing that you can do. That's like why I feel like people should be getting in the game in the first place. Like you just like love that act of creation. And if you remove comparison, yeah, right, like you're not comparing yourself against other startups or other friends and what they're doing. You remove ego and you just are purely here because you just love creating stuff. The shit becomes really fun, and then that's how you end up building something like really, really awesome.
Yeah. Speaking of permission to fail, one of the things that you do that I absolutely have fallen in love with is unnecessary disruptions.
Yeah, that's a complete side operation when I'm bored and I have more time. But yeah, it's a really fun little thing.
Because you're flexing that muscle. Like for those who don't follow your unnecessary disruptions, like take me through one of the ones that you're the most excited about. Maybe it's the finger forks or whatever, but it's like, what are the unnecessary disruptions?
Yeah, so it's funny you bring that up. First time it's happening on a podcast, so I love it. Unnecessary disruptions. I mean, like the irony is in the name itself, right? Like you look at what literally doesn't need to be disrupted at all, and you're like, but if I were to disrupt it, what would it be? And I think you played it off nicely, where it's like, this is just, some people on the weekend, they go to the bars, or they go like, everybody has their own vice of like what they want to do when they're outside of work. And like, for me, it's all about creating. And I want to just create stuff that if you're an entrepreneur, like you don't just have one idea and it's your company that you have. It's like you have like 1,000 ideas all the time. Right. And unnecessary disruptions is a way, like a really like just like fun, recreational way for me to act on some dumb ideas that are just really funny to me. And it did start off with the notion of the only rule that I have in order for this to be successful is, does it make me laugh? If it makes me laugh, then I don't care if it gets 3 views. I don't care if no one buys it. Like, I just want to make myself laugh. It's like my creative outlet. And so it started off with that. And then eventually it ended up getting like decent amount of success. So, I mean, the finger fork one's pretty funny. I mean, like the fork obviously does not need to be reinvented. Nobody's complaining about the fucking fork, right? Like you go to dinner, like people are like, yeah, this is good. Nobody's like, oh my God, this is so cumbersome. Like I can't even eat my steak. I've never heard anybody complain about that thing. And when you look up its like history, it's been around for thousands of years. Like it's with no iteration on this thing, right? And so I was like, okay, like if you were to do something to it, like what would you do? And so like very simply came out with a finger fork, which is it is exactly what it sounds like. It's these little caps that stick on your finger and they extend as little forks so that you're not just using one fork, but maybe you have 5 to 10 at the same time, and you dig into your food and then you can eat it, right? So made one of those. And what's cool about it is, my thing was also like, it was hyper focused on pace. The problem with typically like physical production is that, if you have an idea, you're like, oh, let me go find my factory in China, and then I have to produce X amount of units, and then I have to fund X amount, whatever. And I was like, fuck that. Like, how do you just make one? I just want to get one prototype. I want to launch it on TikTok. And I basically say on TikTok, hey, if this gets enough views and much demand, then I'll go produce it in bulk and then I'll go sell it, right? So it's a really cool way to be able to produce something very quickly, get it out on TikTok, solicit demand, and then if you get demand, then great. If you don't, then forget it. It was just fun content, fun thing to come out with, and then you move on to the next thing. So it ended up blowing up. This is like a classic thing where it's like, you kind of you want to release quickly because you don't know how it's going to get used or like how people are going to get feedback. The people that ended up buying it out and selling it out the most were all the oyster houses in LA. So they were just like pretty sick ones too, but they were like, oh, this is going to be perfect. Like, can we buy it for all of our customers so that when they come here, like this is how you can shuck oyster. I'm like, I would have never thought that, but like, cool, like more power to you. So yeah, that was like a really fun one. There was the ant farm phone case. That one went viral. That one,
yeah, that was with the ants in the phone case, whatever, right?
Correct. Yeah, it was like, you have like a phone case in the back here, and it's an ant farm, and then you could put a bunch of ants down there, and there's live ants, and then you put in food, and we have like a whole instruction on how you feed them, and then it also comes with a playground set so that you can let the ants out during the day, and then you can let them play on like their own little like mini obstacle course, and then you have a little shovel to like scoot them back in. That one we got like a lot of hate for sure. But it was still, it was really fucking fun. That one was probably my favorite. So like a bunch of stuff like that. The last 5 months I haven't been able to have any weekend time. It's all going to Genie launches right now. But probably towards December, there's a couple things cooking that I want to release as Christmas gifts and holiday gifts.
So how though? How do you like? Is this you just sitting in a room by yourself? Are you like, hey, I get some buddies together and we whiteboard out stuff? Like, how do you go about this brainstorming, deciding to put ants in a phone case?
No, dude. I mean, it's honestly, it's actually like there's no one that you'll meet that has more ADD than I do. I could be in a meeting talking to somebody on this podcast, honestly, and we could be talking and I'll be listening to everything here, and then I don't know how it happened, like something will just pop up, like, oh shit, and I'll just go onto my phone, write something down in my notes section. And then on Sundays, what typically happened was there was one of my good friends, and she's extremely talented interior designer in LA. And the reason why she's so talented is that she has a really good ability of like finding something on, like, let's say Pinterest, or, you know, like a couch that's like $60,000, crazy design or whatever. And she's like, all right, I'm going to go do that, but I'm going to go do it for $1,000 with all of my network people in LA that can build it. So like really unique. So I was like, dude, can you do that except for ant farm phone cases and for like, I don't want to go build this prototype. Can you go figure it out? And she was just like a genius at it. And so, yeah, like, I mean, like she, like if I had an idea, I would tell her basically on Sundays, I'd be like, here's a bunch of ideas. Here's my ideas for content. Here are my ideas for prototype. And then she would just go ahead and go get it done. And then we would both release it together and then solicit the demand. So it was really fun. I got to get back into it, but yeah, time has been limited. But like, yeah, that's why I was like, my bio is like founder at Genies, and then like unnecessary disruptions when I'm bored. Like when I'm bored, it's like, that's when I go to town with it. So yeah, super. If you have any ideas, send them over to me for sure.
You have a kid now, so I would say on one hand, you will have no more time for boredom, but on the other hand, you will have lots of time for innovation, like just lots of ideas for innovation.
So many kid ideas that have already come up, dude. I mean, you really do like think about things that make your life better. And already I'm sitting there being like, why the fuck do I have to, like, I don't understand why I have to sit here at this angle and hold this bottle. I was like, how is there no, like, and I've gone online, I've seen some rudimentary stuff, but I'm like, how is there nothing that can be like a combination of those, you know, like putting like different characters or different trinkets on top of your baby so he's getting entertained, and then one of the characters just comes down and feeds you the bottle and then recoils and plays like a bottle feeding it. I was like, I don't know how those things don't exist yet. And I think there's like an element of like, hey, you're supposed to bond with the baby, you should be feeding the baby. And I'm like, yeah, dude, like let's say I've bonded with this kid enough, and once in a while I want to give him some like really fun feeding experiment. Like I should be able to do that. So yeah, a lot of ideas have come up in the baby realm. I will say that there's like a lot of baby, like that has been a very well explored and well versed area. There's a lot of really cool stuff out there for kids.
Yeah. Akash, it has been a lot of fun talking to you and learning from you. If people wanted to work with you or follow you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Instagram, just follow me at Akash Nigam, or DM me, or go to the website, and you know, there's a lot of different avenues there to get in contact with a wide variety of the things we talked about today.
That's awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for your time and wisdom here today. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for listening. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for listening to the Up Arrow podcast with William Harris. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.